Hi everybody, it's Joe Cioffi. Apologize for the late start. I thought I'd be back by 8 o'clock, but I had a company function I had to attend, and just finally had the opportunity to sneak away. Hope everybody had a great day. I'm also not feeling too well today. I got a little bit of a cold, or at least I'm fighting off one. So let's see what we can get done with here. We've got a lot going on. The weather maps are very busy tonight. Radars are loading up, and we've got all sorts of winter storm warnings up, and winter storm watches, and winter weather advisories, and you can see it here on the U.S. Weather Service map, and also some additional winter storm watches that are up for parts of northern Pennsylvania, south central New York State. Warnings are up for the southwest New York, as well as northern and northeastern New York, and on up through northern Vermont. New watches up for Maine. We've got flood watches up for much of central and southern New England, down but not including New York City and Long Island. Winter storm warnings for the western half of Tennessee, including Memphis and Nashville, and also winter storm warnings for western Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, with advisories extending down into northern Mississippi. Freezing rain is going to be a big deal in the southern fringe of this area. And then on up in the northwest with another system coming in, we've got winter storm warnings up throughout much of northwestern Montana. Advisories extend out to the Dakotas. Winter storm warnings up in northern Idaho and across the northern part of Washington state. So definitely very, very busy conditions, totally opposite from what it was like just a couple of weeks ago when we were looking from one end of the country to the other, and we couldn't even find anything of consequence. You could hardly find a rain or snow shower anywhere. And we're beginning to see the radars pick up in shower activity, now moving into western New York, rain shower activity, and down into western Pennsylvania and West Virginia. A lot of warm air is piled into the eastern part of the United States ahead of this frontal boundary, which is no big surprise. And we are also seeing a pretty strong push of very cold air coming in. I'm going to pull up the this radar view here. Let me just bring it up to the top. And this is a look from the standpoint of the Great Lakes. And I'll make it a little bigger for you. So this much of what's up in this area is actually rain, but we're starting to see precipitation changing over to freezing rain and snow on the western edge of this as cold air begins to work in. So this is going to be, rather interesting scenario here overall, because of the fact that you've got these temperatures that have been shooting up in a big way in the east, only to get knocked down when this is all said and done. Now, I'm thinking that at least the way, from what we saw of models today, that some inland spots might see a change over to sleet or freezing rain, but on the whole, the coastal areas probably won't. I think the precip will shut off right before the cold air gets here. And once it gets in, by the way, it's going to get in a big hurry. The temperatures are going to fall rather quickly, so there'll probably be some residual icing from standing moisture that's going to freeze. Also, much of the area through the northeast that has the flood watches up, looking at anywhere from 1.5 inches to 3 inches of rain. There's your wave on the GFS moving northeast. So you can see the western edge here. You kind of got this narrow band of freezing rain, and then you have the snow behind that moving on to the northeast. It's hard to figure how much snow is actually going to fall out of this, because the models, trying to time out the changeover from freezing rain to snow is not necessarily an easy thing, unless you're actually sitting, unless I'm actually focused on every individual city, and I really didn't have time to do that today. But we do have another very cold Arctic air mass coming down behind this. So for my area, it's back to teens and single digits. And then we're going to move on to early next week, where we do have some energy that's coming down from the Great Lakes. And I want to take a look at this because you can see it here. Part of this trough that's in the eastern part of the U.S. kind of gets left behind. I'll just roll it back to today. And you can see the southern end of that trough never really quite lifts up. Just a little piece of it does. But much of it hangs back. And then you've got this energy that's coming down from Canada into the upper Midwest that's going to try to phase with that to some degree, and then the system cuts off and makes its way toward the East Coast. It doesn't, unlike the European yesterday, and that was, when I saw that, the European yesterday, let me show you what that did. I'm going to go back 2 runs, if it lets me. And I may have to go back 1 more. No, that was it. And then we had the overnight run. Maybe it was the overnight run that cut it off. Yeah. So this is what the overnight run did for this system for the middle of next week. This vigorous low cuts off in North Carolina and Virginia. This would have made for a major storm in the Northeast. But, I kind of looked at this and thought, this doesn't make much sense to me, at least not from what I'm seeing at the moment. And sure enough, today's European is nothing like this. In fact, it looks very much like the other models do with respect to how it's treating the upper air. A much, a dynamic system to some degree, yes, but far less dynamic than what it was showing. And it makes sense to me because what the European was showing last night, I think it was way overdone and just didn't make any sense. So with a system like this, it makes it kind of problematic to figure out how is this going to play out when it comes to the surface features. And I think there's still a lot of uncertainty. You have energy that's swinging out of the Great Lakes. You're going to have a low that's going to try and form off the coast, a weak one, and probably get some snows that get generated from maybe the Delmarva Peninsula northeastward into southern New England. But it's kind of tough. This could go back to one of those systems in December that wound up being the one right before Christmas. Could be an example of that, where most of it was rain right along the immediate coast because the temperatures were sort of borderline, and this is what we seem to be seeing here. And to the north and west, you wound up with some snow, but it might be a bit different than that. If you get a little development, you could get the atmosphere to be a bit colder. But overall, I'm just going to kind of take a wait-and-see attitude on this. I'm not especially bullish or bearish in either direction. And over the long haul, the pattern is going to take, I think, a bit of a break here as we move the chess pieces around. When we look at the upper air, I'll bring up the North America view. I have to apologize, folks. I'm feeling a little bit a little bit under it right now, so I'm not going to stay for too much longer. But you can see that trough out to the west. This is for next week now, and we'll have to see if this winds up, how this really ultimately evolves. Once that pulls out, it looks like we're going to get, an attempt at a ridge in the east. The European and the GFS are different in that the GFS wants to have a bit more troughing. So it looks, the pattern on the GFS this afternoon doesn't look half bad if you're a winter weather lover. I mean, I've seen a lot worse. The European's a little bit different in its long range. Doesn't mean that it's right because it has, it really has not done very well this winter at all in a lot of respects. The European wants to have a big ridge building in the eastern part of the U.S. The GFS on the late afternoon run kind of is much weaker, has much more of a deeper trough that tries to carve out to the west at 90. So I think the jury is still out as to where this is going. I don't know that I necessarily see any kind of blowtorch pattern in the eastern United States if we modify for a week or two. I'm not so sure whether this is going to be anything too extreme. I did say, I may have said, I think I said this yesterday, and I'll say this again. I'm becoming more and more convinced that if we do get a break in the overall wintry type pattern, we certainly have gotten a break from the Arctic pattern. There are things going on in the stratosphere that are similar to what happened back in November and early December, which the folks that know this stuff and work with it on a daily basis were pointing to that, saying that this was going to be, we're going to get a pretty strong shot of cold air, and that worked out. And we may be going down the same road again as we get into February, but I think we're only going to know that obviously in the fullness of time. We're just going to have to let things play out. So let me just let me just say hi to everybody here. Again, I apologize for starting off late. I was going to do it at 6 o'clock, and then I got delayed, and I pushed it to 8, and then I got delayed again, and someone sent me a message asking me if I was okay, and I really appreciate that. I actually find that quite amazing. Thank you very much. No, I'm okay, except for the fact that I got a scratchy throat and a bit of a head cold. So I'm just trying to check through your questions if you have any. Looks like everybody was more worried about me than anything else. So I appreciate that. Okay, so look, let's call it a night. Tomorrow we'll go back to, assuming that I don't wake up without a voice. Real quick, jcweather.net, ice storm in Binghamton. Yeah, I think you might get, so you're going to get some freezing rain, a decent amount of it, I think, before maybe you go over to some snow. I didn't give it, let me give it a quick look here. In terms of precip amounts, just hang on 1 second, folks. I'm sorry. Let me just take a look. I'm going to look off screen. I know that we do have we actually have a winter storm watch up for Binghamton at the moment. And probably, you know, that makes sense. They're actually going for a mixed precip going over to snow and sleet, and then just snow and 3 to 5 inches. I think I think that's fair. If that cold air comes in fast enough, you know, it might limit the amount of freezing rain. So that really is going to be key. A lot of times in situations like this, you do wind up seeing the cold air coming in faster than what's modeled, and that's something that happens a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up seeing that happen again. Southwest Ohio getting more than 4 inches in. Okay, let me just check for you, William F. Hang on a second. And you got that winter weather advisory up for Southwest Ohio, so I guess you're looking for Cincinnati. You'll probably also have some freezing rain issues to deal with, and then going over to snow. They're going for 2 to 4. I mean, I think that's a fair forecast for them, for you guys. So you should be able to put that down. I would think. All right, folks. You could probably, yes, thunderstorms. By the way, Iron Mine 10. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of thunderstorms running around later tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night. That would not shock me at all. All right, folks. I got to call it a night. Between my nose and my ears and my throat, it's kind of starting to lose it now. So. Everybody have a great evening. Okay, I'll try and get something done tomorrow, a bit longer, and you know, hopefully I will get a good night's sleep and get rid of this. It's been like this for 4 days, and finally, maybe I'm getting to the end of it. At least that's the hope and that's the plan. All right, we'll see you.